Hi, welcome back to my channel. My name is Jennifer. Before I get into some ideas around healing PTSD and trauma and our childhood programming and unhealthy beliefs we might hold on to, I want to touch on a few things from the last video. One of the things that I talked about was the event that happens that feels so overwhelming that the hippocampus goes offline, and that is what causes PTSD. Those implicit memories are held, and the emotions from them can get triggered in the present day. But I think it's important to note that it isn't just catastrophic events that this is a catastrophic event, but maybe not seen as one, but any sexual violation, sexual abuse, will have the same sort of effect and cause PTSD. The other thing to remember too is that other unhealed things that happen to us and from childhood may not have an intense effect that looks like PTSD where there's flashbacks coming in. It still can have the same sort of effect where there's unhealed implicit memories or emotions that can get triggered in present day. The other thing I wanted to touch on from the last video was a little bit about freeze mode. When I said that during, say, a sexual assault, a person goes into freeze mode and that their brain made that decision in a split second so they could survive, that's the truth. But so many people are confused later and wondering what happened to them when they went into freeze mode. And logically, they can think through, well, I wasn't going to die in that situation. I wasn't going to be, murdered. That it doesn't make sense to them. So I want you to understand that freeze mode can happen. Even it could be there were some earlier experiences of freeze mode. And so the brain already knows, oh, this is similar, go into freeze mode. But even the subtle conditioning of please and appease will make a person more likely to go into freeze mode in a situation like that. It's harder to feel bold and to speak up, even if there's subtle conditioning that so many of us learn in childhood of, don't be rude, don't hurt someone's feelings. What you're feeling isn't that big of a deal, isn't that important. And so just know that those things in place, they make us more vulnerable to that. Such an important thing to remember as we are raising our children, to give them empowered voices to speak up when they're uncomfortable. So I want to go now into some ideas around healing PTSD. Did you know that human can completely heal from PTSD, complex PTSD, trauma, childhood trauma? And when you think of it like the car accident, even if it's a horrific car accident, what happens inside the mind and the body and the nervous system can heal. And I took some notes, so I'm going to be looking down as I refer to some of these things. But the reason why it can is because we are wired for healing. The feelings that get buried are going to persist when the brain determines that it's safe enough. I've got not mine, but the chart I found online, I have the little chart here. When we have things that are stuck in freeze mode and haven't been able to have the emotions that go along with it, so completing the cycle, and that needs to come back to regulation, if there's things here, naturally, our brain will resurface them when it deems that it's possible to bring that into our awareness so that we can heal it. So that's just a natural thing that our bodies and our brains want to do. The feelings are going to resurface because naturally we want resolution. And then also the amygdala can learn to not be so hypervigilant, that we can learn to trust ourselves, and that we'll be vigilant enough, and that we don't have to be hypervigilant, which is such a big part of having multiple bad experiences. Our brain will group those memories together, and the amygdala, remembers all of them And so something in present day that might seem smaller is going to feel really big. But the amygdala can relearn as we process those feelings and that hypervigilance and those memories. So we are wired to heal. We're made for it. So the other thing that we can heal is the beliefs about ourselves, conditioning around please and appease, our patterns of relationship. And another reason that scientifically we can heal this is because of the neuroplasticity, that our brains will have stronger neural pathways around what's been exercised repeatedly. And with mindfulness, we can learn what those are, learn how to atrophy those neural pathways that aren't serving us by bringing our attention and planting new seeds in the garden of our minds that are healthy beliefs and patterns. And then we exercise those, and then those become the overriding natural way of being. So these are the reasons why we can heal. And now I want to talk to you about three concepts around healing. Three important concepts around healing PTSD, trauma, childhood programming, and conditioning. So the first thing is that healing happens in the context of safety. So remember how the hippocampus goes offline. Well, we need safety. The hippocampus is online. It's aware of present day. I'm safe in the present day. The past is the past. So the brain is equipped to be aware of that as we're going into processing, which is the second thing. But first is that safety. Safety is established. This can be tricky sometimes in therapy because often people who have childhood trauma and programming will get into patterns of relationship that may be unhealthy. Obviously, there's so many situations in present day that can be unsafe. And if that person is able to get into a therapy office, that initial therapy will be helping them get into safety. That safety is important before reprocessing for the very reason, and this is science, that the hippocampus is online during processing. So that memory, that programming, those emotions get held in that space, get to be allowed to be held and feel and felt. And then the memory will put them in the proper place, and they won't be those implicit raw bubbles that can be triggered and come up and make present day feel so big and overwhelming. So safety. The second thing is that when safety is established, the some sort of reprocessing, some sort of active healing. There are so many different modalities of healing for trauma and PTSD. Such as EMDR, and I will do a video going into more depth of that. But basically, it's a technique that brings a person into the emotions, memories, and then they're able to feel them. And again, this happens in the context of safety. I've heard it said that trauma work is you have 1 foot present, 1 foot past, and you dip into the past, but part of you knows that you're safe in the present, and that keeps that hippocampus online. And when I'm working with a patient who might be going into some real intense feelings, I can tell if they're going to go into dissociation where it's too much, or if they can handle that intense feeling, and they can tell me too if they need to back up, breathe, get into some regulation as they're doing that processing work. So reprocessing in the context of a hippocampus online. And this can look like so many different things, just sharing your feelings with a family member or a friend, or journaling, or just feeling, crying, talking, sharing, or doing some sort of deep reprocessing work, which is probably necessary when there's those unconscious buried memories and emotions around PTSD and that hypervigilance in the nervous system. So the third thing to know about healing, and in that second thing, there's so many different ways to do this. There's a lot of research on different treatments for PTSD. But safety first, and then some sort of sense of completing the cycle, restoring the dignity, letting someone have their voice, having the emotions, connecting the emotions with the memory, understanding what happened. So, and the third thing is relearning the things that were harmful, the things that we learned, beliefs about ourselves, shame, unworthiness, powerlessness, that we're not, beliefs we're not good enough. Please and appease, the different programming that we learn is relearned and rewired through neuroplasticity. And one powerful tool for this is mindfulness. So we notice a belief, a pattern, and then we bring attention to wiring in the new belief and the new pattern. So these three things are so important to be in place for healing. Our brains are wired for it. We are made for it. We can heal completely. And looking at my notes here, just remembering that it can be done and how important that it is. And that mindfulness is going to be helpful with all areas of healing. And so the next video is going to be on mindfulness, and I'm going to teach you a very simple short meditation, mindfulness of breath meditation. So thank you so much for being here, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.